I've been preparing myself for this day. I've tossed the idea around so many times it's become as smooth as a stone gathered from Lake Superior. Today is my 40th birthday. It's a strange feeling because at one time 40 sounded old. It doesn't feel old. It feels quite phenomenal. I've earned these years. I think that teaching high school helps preserve my youth. It keeps me connected with my inner ninth grader. When I come face to face with myself at 14, I meet a teenager obsessed with Rick Springfield and shopping for vibrantly colored clothes. Her dreams perched on hopes of leaving the rural Upper Peninsula of Michigan for the bright lights of a big city. While searching through photos from high school, I stumble upon an article in the Diamond Drill, the weekly paper that was published in Crystal Falls, my hometown. I was competing in a local queen pageant, and when interviewed, said that I enjoyed writing, reading, walking, dancing, painting, going to rock concerts, and that I planned to write books for young adults and travel to Australia. When I channel my ninth grade self, I remember that reading Romeo and Juliet at Forest Park High School felt like a rite of passage. I devoured the play and savored the sound of historic and poetic language rolling off my tongue. Being boy crazy, I had a thirst for romance, and Romeo and Juliet was an intriguing mix of forbidden love and teenage rebellion. While I was passionate about writing and reading, I told anyone who suggested that I should be an English teacher that they were crazy. I would be a television journalist and travel the Orient Express and write documentaries. An English teacher? No, never. Yet life comes with twists and turns, and I found myself with my own classroom. My first year of teaching English at Gwynn High School the fall of 2001 is a blurry landscape of overwhelming piles of grading, the boundless energy of ninth graders, and the exhilaration I felt at the end of the year that I had survived. I remember one afternoon the final bell sounding and my students bolting for the door. I sat motionless with the sound of student voices still glittering around me. This is real, I thought. I have my own classroom, room 116. And to think, I would be getting paid to teach Shakespeare. I enjoy teaching Shakespeare to my ninth grade students because it presents a challenge. It's amazing we can experience a play that was written for audiences in the late 1500s, and over 400 years later, we can still understand the brilliance of Shakespeare's plot. Without fail, when I ask students what Romeo is trying to say when he admires Juliet from afar and proclaims, "She doth teach the torches to burn bright," every hour, at least one student's hand shoots up as they loudly say, "He thinks that Juliet's hot." Yes, Romeo and Juliet carries universal appeal for teenagers as well as English teachers. As I try to bridge the generation gap with my students, I try to remember what it was like to be 14. I probably had a hard time relating to Juliet's predicament. My parents were not very strict and did not determine who I could date. Marriage wasn't in my vocabulary in the ninth grade. When I look back at my youth and the text of Romeo and Juliet, the character I can relate to the least is probably Lady Capulet. My mother gave me the freedom to become the person that I wanted to be, and always encouraged me to prolong marriage until I had a better idea of who I was. Though I think that because the relationship between Lady Capulet and Juliet was so different than the relationship with my own mother, it makes the play stand out more. I've always been shocked that in Shakespeare's day, women were not legally allowed to step foot on stage, and female roles were played by young men. During the Renaissance, when a woman married, she gave up her identity to her husband. Scholar Mary Beth Rose wrote about women in Shakespeare's time. "By marriage," she wrote, "the husband and wife became one person in law, and that person was the husband." Rose explains that in Renaissance England, a married woman gave up all rights over land and profits to her husband. She could not write a will, and she had no legal rights in guardianship of her children. If her husband died, the children would become a ward of the state, and she would have to appeal in a public auction to attain guardianship of the children she bore in her own womb. In other words, according to the law during Shakespeare's time, the married woman did not exist at all. That really makes me appreciate the freedoms I have as a woman, and I'm thankful for my mom's active and loving role in my life. My mom attributes many of my hobbies and talents to her father, my grandfather, the late Thomas Puskala. Grandpa loved poetry, and he supported and praised my writing pursuits. Grandpa gifted me with amazing books and taught me how powerful language can be. Mom always says that I got my green thumb from Grandpa, and that whatever I plant in the ground takes off like wildfire. She sees Grandpa with every blooming peony. While my mom credits my love for literature and education with my grandfather, I acknowledge her for helping me march down the path of lifelong learning. My mom bought me piles of storybooks when I was a little girl and read to me. It was her voice that taught me to savor words and language. As I grew older, my mom taught me to compliment other women. Though she may not adamantly spout some of the feminist theories that I do, early in my life, my mom helped me understand that a source of a woman's power was to recognize the beauty of other women. She taught me early on that the culture I grew up in often pits women against other women, and that this dilutes our strength. I think of what my mom taught me when I ask my students to use the literature we're reading as a lens to view history, the society we inhabit, and the meaning of our experiences and lives. Without knowing it, my mom taught me to peer inside Juliet and Lady Capulet's minds and try to imagine how their world shaped their thoughts and their dreams. When I come face to face with myself at 14, I can't help but think of my mom as a teenager. What were her hopes and dreams? She was a young mother, and I imagine her life took a different turn when she had me. I think of the sacrifices she made to make sure that I never went without. All through my teenage years, I took this part of my mother's life for granted. When I was 16, after taking on a summer babysitting job, I had the opportunity to spend a couple weeks in Chicago with family friends and attend a Bon Jovi concert. My mom volunteered to babysit for me so I could explore the museums in the city and see my favorite band from the front row. She thought it was important for me to travel and didn't want me to miss out on a fun and educational opportunity. Mom was selfless and gave so much of herself and her time. I remember telling my parents that I wanted to go to Marquette University, and I'm sure they worried about how we could afford a private college. But not once did they tell me no. Instead, they saved and went without things so I could receive an education. I imagine it was hard for Mom to watch me tasting my newfound freedom, though she never showed it when she took me shopping to decorate my dorm room. My mom went straight from high school to being a mom, and she missed out on a lot of the things that I got to experience. My mom was always the last one to sit down at the dinner table, and she never put herself first. I recently wrote a paper about how in ancient and modern literature, when dealing with the topic of mother and daughter relationships, the mother's voice is often silenced. I regret that it took me so long to appreciate the sacrifices that my mother's made for me. She still is generous with her time and resources, and I'm so excited to spend time together tomorrow when she gifts me with the vegetable seedlings she planted, including over 20 tomato plants she nurtured from seed from my garden. My mother embodies the spirit of creativity, and though she may not realize it, my mom taught me to appreciate so many things, including Shakespeare. I think we have it all wrong in our culture. We should give our mothers a present on our birthday, which is why I created this digital story as a gift. Mom, you've imparted more wisdom in me than I can begin to write about. While I'd like to credit my 9th graders for keeping me young, it is your spirit and youthful energy that guides and reminds me that we are only as old as we feel. Your laughter keeps me grounded, and you taught me to speak up for myself and to work hard. You taught me to believe that I am intelligent, beautiful, and powerful. I am your reflection. Everything that I achieve is because of you. I am the embodiment of your sacrifices and support. I can never repay you for the life you've given me. I'm sorry for the times I've silenced you. Thank you. I love you.